Hey, what's up, guys? Joe here, back at my channel making another video about the Philippines. Today I want to talk about something very specific. It's water here in the Philippines and kind of my experience with it and what to avoid depending on your experience in US. You can drink different types of water, but there's a lot of ways in which kind of bad water or water that you're even just not used to can really get you here in the Philippines. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you some of the brands that I can't drink and some of the ones that I can, and other ways you can kind of ingest water accidentally and have it be a problem. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is distilled water. Okay, so most of the water in the Philippines looks sort of like this, right? It's like this yellow bottle. There's it's this is a CSI. Uh, there's another brand that has a yellow label that is also distilled, and if you can read it on there, it says very clearly that it says distilled on the bottle, right? And because it says distilled, if you don't know what distillation is, the process is just like evaporating water, and then it'll basically go up into a tube and then fall back down. And this process is like a very common way to purify water since like ancient times, right? But the thing about it is, if you're from the United States, we actually very seldom will actually drink distilled water there. And based on some of my research, and I have other friends in the past who've had a similar issue, distilled water, if you're not used to drinking it, it can actually pull certain toxins out of your stomach that already exist, and it can also hurt your ability to absorb water and also hurt your ability to absorb nutrients. Now, if you're used to distilled water, it's kind of already built into your metabolism. Like the Filipinos here, they all drink distilled water. But me being from Hawaii, from the United States, it's a very different experience for me. I pretty much never would drink distilled water. The context in which I would interact with distilled water would be more like washing a car, right? We'd use distilled water for washing a car. Many times, if you were to put together like a fish aquarium, you would use distilled water in the aquarium, and then you would add certain minerals, whether it be chlorine, salt, whatever, into your aquarium, and then because you're starting with like a very with no like minerals in there, no additives, no chemicals, then when you add, you can get the right amount so that your fish in your aquarium and your animals in your aquarium don't die. So washing cars, aquariums, these are where you normally see distilled water. Also, people distill water themselves in like hardcore survival situations, right? Like if you ever watch any of those Survivor TV shows, a lot of people will use a tube and distill water to purify it if it's like from a swamp and it was otherwise unhealthy to drink. Um, that being said, for Americans, for Canadians, Europeans, we usually have highly mineralized water. In Hawaii, the water is kind of less hard than most of the United States if you're talking about tap water, but it's still pretty hard. And here the water is also hard too if you're talking about the tap, but you would never consider drinking it anyway because it's so gross. So what I want to say is, for me, I had a very specific experience where I think when I went from Angeles to here in Iba, I was drinking a lot of distilled water because that was probably the most time I spent like in hot conditions, when you're traveling in the bus, and they give you distilled water if you can buy it in the bus, right? So for that reason, I tended to just drink a lot of it throughout my transition, and when I got here when I got here to Iba, I got really sick. I was actually sick for like almost maybe like 3 or 4 days. And it's really hard to explain the way that sickness was. It was kind of like I just had crazy weakness and my stomach just wasn't working. It didn't feel so much like poison because I've actually felt that feeling too, like I was either food poisoned or poisoned from dirty water, because I wasn't drinking dirty water, but I just was really sick and I was in bed for basically like 4 days, right? Fortunately, my Filipina girlfriend here took really good care of me, so I was okay. But wow, this video's already getting long. So I already showed you this water. If you're an American and you're not used to drinking distilled water, I would avoid this. If I lived here, I'd probably start trying to drink this just so I could get used to it, because I don't want to be like an American wuss anymore. But since I only have less than a month left, I'm going to avoid this stuff like the plague. If you can't get mineral water, if the water says purified, like this bottle does, right? You know, it says purified right there. I don't know if you can read it, but that's what it says right there. This is, at least this has a chance of not being distilled. It's probably less likely distilled because in the culture here, being distilled is like a selling point. For them, they think of that as like an indication of high quality. So just saying that it's purified, that probably means that it's filtered. Here is mineral water. So this is an example of mineral water. Usually they'll say it on there, but this is like a safe brand for me to drink. I've been drinking Summit pretty much most of the time, and this one I have no complaints, no problems. It says right on here, you probably can't read it from there, but it says the actual mineral content of the water. So that even though this doesn't say it doesn't say on it that it's mineral water, it very obviously is, because there's minerals inside of it. It doesn't have to say outright that it's mineral water when it says the exact amount of minerals that are in the water. Most of the Filipinos, they actually get their water from like a filling station somewhere, and they put them in these blue containers right here, like this. And this is distilled water. So I don't actually drink this, but I do use it to brush my teeth here. It's fine to use distilled water to brush your teeth. I also use it for coffee, because coffee is, once you make coffee with the distilled water, it suddenly has enough minerals to where it won't affect you in the same way as water that then if you're drinking the water just straight up. Okay, so I've talked about bottled water, I've talked about distilled. There was another time that I got pretty sick, and this sickness didn't last as long as being sick from distilled water. It was really just like a day. My stomach took maybe like 4 or 5 days to recover, but it was really just like a day. And what happened is I went to Jollibee and I ordered a soda. And I carried the soda home, and by the time I got home, the ice had all melted, so I just drank it anyway. And within an hour, I felt probably worse than I did from distilled water. I couldn't get up, I couldn't move. I had very erratic, like watery bowel movements. So it was like crazy. It was like very intense. Where when I have the issue with the distilled water, it wasn't as intense, but it was longer. And then drinking the ice got me very hurt. So what I want to say as a tip is, in addition to avoiding distilled water, definitely avoid letting your ice melt in your drinks. Okay, because ice is probably almost always made with tap water. This was from Jollibee, and I would imagine most restaurants are the same. So just avoid ice. A lot of restaurants won't give you ice, and they will like just give you like a bottle of Coke, right? Like this. Totally fine. I don't feel comfortable at restaurants drinking anything with ice in it. So if there is not like a way to just order something that's pre-bottled straight up, I probably am not going to drink it. I'll probably just ask for like a bottle of water or something. Most restaurants will do that here, so I would just avoid anything out of a pitcher. Furthermore, kind of expounding on that, like you'll see a lot of iced coffee and iced tea here. I would probably refuse to drink any iced tea or iced coffee. I'm a little bit more open to hot coffee and hot tea because those things are boiled, right? And the problem with the tap water is like a bacterial problem. It's not really an issue with, it's not an issue so much with minerals or anything like that. It's like there's germs in it. So If it's boiled, you're probably fine. You're fine to eat it. In addition to that, when you're talking about fruits and vegetables that have high contents of water, you just gotta be considerate of these because these things can also hurt you. Like especially the thing that can hurt you the most when we're talking about produce are things that are not acidic. So, for example, if we're talking about like a lemon, right? There's no way you're going to get hurt with bacteria from a lemon because the acidity of the lemon is like comparable to battery acid. So it's going to kill every freaking germ in there. So you can eat a lemon, you can eat a sour citrus, you can eat probably grapefruit, any kind of acidic fruit. Some fruits that are a bit more dangerous that if you're going to eat, I wouldn't say don't eat them, but I'd say don't eat them if you have to be reliably traveling on a bus or driving for long periods of time. Like here, I'm not going to go anywhere for a month, so I'll eat fruit. I'll eat like a watermelon is a very unacidic fruit. It has almost no acidity, right? So because it's unacidic, the water in it can hold that bacteria and it can transfer into you if the water is from like just regular irrigation water, right? The same is true for what is another fruit that has very low acidity? Certain other melons. Melons are probably the biggest culprit because they have tons of water, but they also don't really kill germs inside of them. And then furthermore, like vegetables, like cabbage or lettuce, uh, cucumber. Those are other ones to watch out for. And I wouldn't say like don't eat vegetables. I would just say if you have to like travel a lot when you're eating the vegetables, I would just cook them, right? Because once you put them under that boiling, they'll kill pretty much any germs. I eat lots of rice here. The Philippines is addicted to carbohydrates. So I eat lots of rice, and rice is fine because the water that's used to make the rice is boiled, right? And anything that is like cooked, and you notice that here in the Philippines, people are way more intense about cooking. Even back in US, like they wouldn't eat anything raw. And a lot of times that would include vegetables. And I understand now that a lot of those immigrants grew up in a situation where it wasn't necessarily as safe for them to eat fresh raw vegetables, so they would cook it. It's kind of an interesting thing because in the US I have a lot of friends who are raw vegans, and I wonder if they would adjust their diet here because it's harder to eat a lot of raw fruit and vegetables safely because the water inside of it might not be good for you. But yeah, so basically, just to sum up everything I've said, if you're brushing your teeth, I'd probably try to use distilled water. It's fine. But for drinking, if you want to drink distilled water, just make sure before you come to the Philippines that you're used to drinking it. Pretty much any store will have distilled water, so just drink a lot of it and see if it messes you up there in the US while you're still in a safe place. You don't want to have to deal with that when you're out here. Ice sodas, fountains, tea, coffee. I think it's okay to drink hot tea and hot coffee. I would avoid cold brew. I would avoid iced tea because it's probably made with like a mix, kind of like Kool-Aid. I would avoid soda fountains because soda fountains probably almost always use tap water, albeit it might be filtered, so it might be okay. But I would avoid soda fountains. I would just drink soda from bottles like this if you want to drink soda. Don't let your ice melt, right? Don't let your ice melt into anything. If you let your ice melt, it's probably much more likely to hurt you. So if you can't drink something before the ice melts, just don't get ice. Like if that would be my recommendation. And just be careful with fruits and vegetables. Acidic fruits are always better. Cooked vegetables, cooked fruits are always going to be better. They're going to be a little bit safer. And before I close out this guide, I just want to say that like all these things I'm telling you, like it's more like when you first get here. But if you're like going to move here or you're going to be here a long time, you'll be able to figure out pretty quickly what you can eat and what you can't eat. But hopefully this kind of video helps a lot of people who are coming to the Philippines, or honestly any developing nation, with trying to be safe and trying to make the right choices about what to eat and what not to eat, or what to drink and what not to drink. Anyway, I hope this video is helpful. It's already gone like way too long. Holy cow, 14 minutes. Um, I hope you guys have a good day. Aloha from the Philippines. Check you later. Good night. Bye bye.